we have a special reading and performance from Kayla Martinez that we commissioned for the South Summit. So I'd like to introduce Kayla Martinez and bring her up to the Zoom stage. And as a means of introduction, Kayla is originally from the greater New Orleans area and is an undergraduate at the University of Chicago, where she is studying creative writing and inequality, social problems, and change, which is quite a major. She aspires to write for television and hopes to tell stories that feel personal and foster communication and connection. She's a spoken word poet and a writer, and much of her work features her experiences as a queer person who, and I quote, is mildly confused about the identities she holds. I should note that Kayla completed a summer internship with the New Orleans Film Society last year, where much of her work focused on the film Eve's Bayou. She not only researched the fashion in the film and the many sites in South Louisiana where it was shot, but she also took a deep dive into criticism and social media engagement around the film. And we were so grateful to work with her. And it's our pleasure to have her involved in the South Summit to share her piece entitled Roots. Please join me in welcoming Kayla Martinez.
Hey everybody. So I'm just gonna get started. I'm gonna warn you, I tend to talk with my hands, but because there's like a Zoom screen cutoff, you may or may not see them. So just be aware. Okay, so roots. I always say I'm from New Orleans when I meet someone new. It's the never-ending college meet and greet merry-go-round that you're bound to forget, even more so when it's on Zoom, but we do it anyway. I put on my best, I'm such a nice person voice and say, hey y'all. My name's Kayla. I'm a third year studying creative writing. I use she, her pronouns, or sometimes I'll say she, they, because frankly, that's a loaded question. And then I get to the good part. I say, and I'm from New Orleans. I scan the room or the screen more recently and look for some signs of recognition. It usually works. Now I'm at least mildly interesting in the sea of other undergraduates who likely also have majors, are from places, and use pronouns. It doesn't only work in the classroom either. I've been known to receive Tinder messages from people asking me to tell them about my wild experiences at Mardi Gras, even though my family traffics in truck parades in a comfy spot at Toth. Uber drivers and therapists alike love to tell me that they visited, and it was fun, or they visited and it was a little crowded, or they visited, and honestly, how can you stand the humidity? Here's the kicker though. I am not from New Orleans. I was born in Metairie, a suburb of sorts, at the hospital that's now in Ochsner on the road that you take to get to the Audubon Zoo. I spent my first few years of life in a little green and white house my parents rented from my great-grandma, close to the causeway. Eventually, they made the decision that lots of white, middle, and upper-class parents make and move to the North Shore, even further away from the city, for the schools. I grew up across the lake in Mandeville, the quintessential suburb of a metropolis full of breathtaking nature and questionable politics. That's where I'm really from. But like everyone else in Mandeville, when I'm out of state, I say I'm from the city. No one from Chicago's ever heard of Mandeville, and honestly, why would they? If you draw a line on a map almost perfectly north from New Orleans, you'll get to Chicago, and maybe you'll make your way to Hyde Park, where I go to school. There, I've come across people who have a lot of things to say about the South. Usually they're from California or New York, no hate, but in general, they've never been anywhere near Louisiana, and yet they'll imply or sometimes explicitly say things like, I can't believe you grew up queer there and survived, or isn't everybody racist, or the simple, I don't think I'd ever go there. No, I'm no fool, and I know that the South has its own unique set of problems that desperately need to be dealt with. But few things in this world make me more frustrated than when somebody who knows nothing about the South makes sweeping generalizations and assumes that a state's color on the election map tells them everything they need to know about it. In reality, as I'm sure y'all know, the American South is stunning and full of important, precious stories just waiting to be told. This can be seen in statistics, as the South is repeatedly recognized as one of the most racially diverse regions in the country and as the home to the largest percentage of queer identifying people. But it is also clearly visible when listening to oral histories or family lore, or whatever you want to call it. Everyone in the South has a story of resilience. It makes sense, at least for those of us from South Louisiana. We live in a place that is slowly sinking into the Gulf, closer and closer to becoming a genuine Atlantis that is constantly battered by hurricanes, floods, and insatiable swarms of mosquitoes. And yet we persist. Why? Is it the natural beauty, sometimes too much to even comprehend, or the casual hellos from passerby? Or is it the sweet tea that eats up your teeth? Is it the jazz or the biscuits and gravy? Or even for the more practically minded than myself, the relatively affordable swaths of land? I'm certain much of this plays a part, but I'm willing to bet that it's the ease with which Southerners can coalesce, coming together with any old guy down the road. When my grandmother had to raise 2 children on her own, she found community in her family, scattered across a handful of blocks. She continues to find it each time she watches my cousins, 2 tow-headed little boys who love bugs and FaceTiming me to tell me about their days. When my grandpa emigrated here from Belize, he found a home away from home in a local Belize association, which he continued to be involved in as his children grew up. And these communities are forming all the time, sometimes over bigger things like deeply held identities, and sometimes over little loves or interests. Just ask my mom, who I introduced to Pokemon Go back in high school, and who now boasts a bona fide platoon of friends from across the city who meet up in their SUVs, bought for when they had to chauffeur children to and from soccer practice, to catch a Snorlax or take down a tower. We do an excellent job of finding things in common with one another. You and the man strolling past you on the lakefront are sure to find something to chit-chat about. Anybody can find a place here. Okay, you're thinking, that's all good and fine, but didn't you up and leave for the Windy City? And you're right, I did. It's one of those things where distance makes the heart grow fonder, or you only know what you've got till it's gone, or maybe just that need to see more than my little corner of the world. I don't know if I'll go back to the South for good, but I know I'll always take it with me. It's in my bones, you know? I can't get away from Fontainebleau State Park or PJ's Coffee, or the swear word spotted chatter filling the backyard of my uncle's old house as he stirs the crawfish with that big paddle and I push my youngest cousin down one of those teeny tiny kid slides. To me, the South means family. It means the Thanksgiving tree I fashioned from a stick and dozens of cutout paper leaves that I brought to our 3 o'clock meal. It means the Black Friday runs later that night, and it means climbing over the railing to sit on the rocks and stare at the sunset, never worrying we might get chilly. It means Decadence Fest and Mardi Gras and that St. Patrick's Day parade where they throw cabbages and you get pinched if you aren't wearing green. To me, the South is home. Of course, home isn't always that professionally edited print sitting on the frame in the mantle. Sometimes home hurts. And that's the case with the South as well. Interspersed with all the fairy dust and sunlight are memories that are far from beautiful. 2 girls in trouble for hugging in the hallway, Confederate flags in the school parking lot, a deeply held fear instilled in me by a priest at an age far too young. I can't talk about the South without also talking about the parts of it that burn, the histories of oppression and marginalization that continue to influence it to this day, the ways in which it has so much room to grow. But you'd be remiss to say that we aren't trying, or that people haven't been working to make it better for all of time. Just ask the New Orleans sanitation workers striking for fair pay, or the organizers of Southern Solidarity, a queer and Black-led grassroots abolitionist movement born out of a desire to offer mutual aid. Ask the writers and poets and artists and activists who continue to do the work day in and day out to make this place a home with its doors thrown open for all. Obviously, the South isn't perfect. Far from it, and we all know that. For lack of a better phrase, it's home to the good, the bad, and the deep fried. Isn't that how it goes? But it's our job as Southern storytellers to revel in that cloudy clump of crises and catharsis, finding a way to tell the stories that make this place so unique and so easily ensnared by the imagination. People have been writing about the South for all of history, and the tradition has not broken with the advent of cinema. Over the summer, I worked with the New Orleans Film Society, an organization which I suspect has a lot of fans in the room today, to dig deeper into the brilliant Casey Lemon's Eve's Bayou. The film, among other things, is distinctly Southern, full of Louisiana mud and that polite way of speaking where no one ever says anything truly rude to each other, but you just know they wish they could. It's charming and nightmarish and magical all at the same time. And I think that's the way it goes when you set a story in the South. There is something so indescribably human about living in this barely habitable place with mosquitoes nipping at your ankles and fireflies blinking in your backyard. The South goes from nothing to something so quickly, from clear skies to thunderstorm, from peacefulness to fright. We're all over the spectrum. We're Spanish moss and moonshine and melodies everyone's almost forgotten. We're the whole arc, the one you learned in middle school with the mountaintop peak in the middle and the 2 valleys on the side. There is so much to say here. The South is the perfect story, and it's sure to make its way into anything I write. I couldn't escape it if I tried, no matter how many states I fly over upon leaving. I am both burdened and blessed with the obligation to tell its tales, and I like it that way. I'd like to close with a poem. So this is called A Poem or Prayer for the Place That I'm From. Home. A word I struggle to define, finding remnants in moss-covered memories, mesmerized by shards of lake, sharp and gray as glass. Sometimes home feels like something that could shatter. Last time I was there, it was winter, though it's never really winter where I'm from. Leaves green like a lover's eyes, the sun wrapping me up like a favorite blanket, making me promise to never let go. Home is a place of contradictions, the greatest toxic love of my life. It hurts me, it heals me, I can't help but go back. It's so easy to get lost in her purple pink skies, her sugar polite, so sweet. You'd never know how quickly she can start a fight and finish it too. Nights with stars that sparkle in a way that city lights just can't replicate. Little boys in Pelican Park sliding into home plate. The audience erupts, all lawn chairs and soccer moms, uncles and aunts, and some coach who's really just a kid's dad. Here, everything is a family affair. And they remain ready to wrap their arms around you, even when they can't quite wrap their minds around your mental health crises, of which there are many. And even if they're still in the process of learning that queerness isn't something you love someone in spite of this, the sight of a ride or die, that's my guy kind of cousin or brother or grandmother with her loving nitpicking or mama with a cane, but still kicking brings infinite joy in the way that only home can, home. Who knew me at my worst through middle school growth spurts, learning swear words, through open-mouthed first kisses, through I will not do the dishes, through standing in front of the mirror, clutching my belly and sucking it in, thinking they'd only love me if I were thin, yet she loved me anyway, fed me beignets and told me, eat what you want. Hospitality is as simple as forcing food onto your guests, and if the doctor says it's too much, he's just a man, and what do men know anyway? I've never known someone as warm as her, both in temperature and temperament. She'd get me feverish for Mardi Gras, hand me a daiquiri to cool me off, and we'd revel in the rare occasion where her temperature would drop. Tiny front porch snowmen with M&Ms for buttons in both eyes. When I was 5, it snowed on Christmas Eve, and my brother was too scared to go outside. He couldn't fathom that such a thing could fall from the sky. Now that I'm gone, my cousins ask for pictures of the icicles that live atop my building. Away from her, I give myself away. Too many hey y'alls and excuse me's to be from anywhere else. And though I want to see the other LA with its pop-up stores and sandy shores, though I want to taste the Big Apple full of thin crust pizza and fire escapes, still I can't escape her grasp home. Sticky sweet like syrup, streets that bump, bump, bump every time you drive down them, neighbors who really do want to borrow some sugar, pecans and pork chops and pralines, and passing the plates around the table and forgoing saying grace, but never forgetting how grateful you are. I grew up in front of a forest, a yellow tree that never turned green, but never shed its leaves either. They tore it down and built a church. At least they replaced the grass with stained glass, built something glimmering and golden. I think that is the South. Broken, brilliant, bittersweet like lemonade, hopeful and hopeless and holy, to Bourbon Street at daybreak and Tiger Stadium at halftime, to midnight drives with the windows down, music turned up way high, to the quiet on the bayou with the stars clear in the sky, to fireflies and fireball, shared with friends like it's communion. Drink it down, say your thanks. Amen.